Today, we're going to dive into something really special, an ancient but, incredibly practical user's manual for the human mind. It's called the Yogacara Bhumi Sastra. Now, don't let that big name scare you off. We're going to break down its core wisdom on how you can genuinely tame your own mind and transform your life, and we're starting right now.
Okay, so let's just start with a really big question. Seriously, think about it for a second. When you're feeling stressed or anxious or just unhappy, where does that stuff actually come from? Is it your boss, the news, the people in your life? I mean, we spend so much of our energy looking for the source of our problems out there in the world. But this ancient guide, it completely flips the script. It says, hey, the real source of our trouble isn't external at all. It's internal. It actually comes down to our own actions. And these actions flow through three fundamental gates: what we do with our body, what we say with our speech, and, what we think with our mind. This idea is the bedrock of everything we're about to explore.
So, to really get a handle on this, first we've got to look at the problem head-on. What are these specific patterns, these actions that end up causing so much suffering for us? Let's get into the specifics.
Now, what's so cool about the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra is that it doesn't mess around with vague ideas. It gives us a very clear list of what it calls the 10 unwholesome actions. Honestly, you can think of this list as the actual source code for our own unhappiness. When we run this code, well, dissatisfaction is pretty much the guaranteed result. So check this out. It's broken down so practically. Through the gate of the body, you've got the obvious ones: harming, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But look at speech. It's not just about lying. It's also that divisive talk that breaks up friendships, those harsh words that can just destroy a reputation, and even idle gossip that wastes time and energy. And then the most subtle gate, the mind. Wanting what others have, actively wishing harm on someone, and just clinging to wrong ideas about how the world works. You see, it covers the whole spectrum of how we operate. Okay, so that's the what. We know what these unwholesome actions are. But the real multi-million-dollar question is, why? Why do we do them? If we know this stuff makes us miserable, why do we keep falling into the same traps? Let's look at the diagnosis. This is such a brilliant metaphor. The text says that our mind is full of these unwholesome seeds. Now, these aren't little physical things, of course. There are deep-seated habits, our latent tendencies. Think of them like little bits of software code, just sitting there, waiting. Then the right conditions pop up. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you see that shiny thing you want, and boom, that seed gets watered and it just sprouts into an unwholesome action. And this brings us right back to that core idea. That internal seed, that latent habit of anger or jealousy, it doesn't just stay locked inside. It needs a way out into the world, and it finds its way out through one of those three gates we keep talking about. So, just to make it crystal clear, the gate of the body is every single physical thing we do. The gate of speech, that's every word we say, write, or even text. And the gate of the mind, well, that's the command center. It's our intention, our thoughts, our views. This is where those unwholesome seeds first start to germinate before they ever become an action or a word.
All right, that's enough about the problem, right? We've identified the actions, we've diagnosed the cause. Now for the good part, the most important part, the prescription. How do we actually start to change this programming and turn these gates of suffering into gates of freedom? This is so key. The solution is not about suppressing our body or our speech or our mind. You can't just nail these gates shut. It doesn't work. The solution is to transform what they're used for. It's all about consciously, intentionally using these exact same three gates to plant wholesome seeds and perform positive, beneficial actions instead. And the text gives us a direct prescription for how to start, especially when it comes to the mind. To counteract those nasty mental habits of anger, resentment, and harm, we're told to actively cultivate these four incredibly powerful positive states. They're known as the four immeasurables. And look how beautifully this works. Instead of just trying not to be angry, you actively practice loving kindness. Instead of feeling jealous, you practice sympathetic joy. You actually train yourself to be happy for other people's good fortune. These are not just nice, fluffy ideas, they're mental skills. You can train them just like training a muscle at the gym. So, growing these positive states is a fantastic antidote, but to make them really stick, to make them stable, we have to train the mind at an even more fundamental level. We need to develop two core skills: the ability to keep our mind stable and focused, and the ability to see things clearly. The text calls these two skills shamatha and vipassana.
Now, the best way to think about them is like the two wings of a bird. You absolutely need both to fly. Shamatha, the stopping, is all about concentration. It's how you calm that chaotic storm of thoughts in your head so your mind becomes steady, stable, and focused. And vipassana, the seeing, well, that's what you do with that stable mind. You use it to look deeply and gain crystal clear insight into how things really are. So where is all this hard work heading? What's the ultimate point of watching our actions, cultivating positive feelings, and training our minds? This is where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the goal, about how this whole process leads to a radical transformation in how we see everything. As we walk this path, our entire way of perceiving reality starts to shift. The Yogacara Bhumi Shastra uses this incredible metaphor of developing 3 eyes, with each eye representing a deeper, more profound level of understanding. First up, you've got the physical eye. This is our default setting, you know? It's what we're all born with. It sees the surface of reality, the world of forms, colors, objects, the world of appearances. It's totally necessary, but it's only the first layer of the story. But then, through practice, we start to develop the divine eye. Now, this isn't some kind of supernatural power. It's more like a developed sensitivity. It's the ability to see the connections that the physical eye just can't, to really understand that subtle web of cause and effect, to see how our actions right now are shaping our reality tomorrow. It sees the patterns hiding beneath the surface. And finally, the ultimate goal is to open the wisdom eye. This is the eye that sees reality exactly as it is, without any filters. It sees directly that everything, including our own sense of self, is impermanent, constantly in flux, deeply interconnected with everything else, and ultimately not the solid, separate thing we always thought it was. This is the kind of seeing that leads to real, lasting freedom.
Wow. Okay, so that was a bit of a whirlwind tour through a huge, profound system. So let's bring it all back down to earth. Let's distill all of this into a clear, simple takeaway that you can start using in your life, like today.
So here it is, your beginner's toolkit. Step 1, just start to recognize these patterns in yourself, your body, speech, and mind. Step 2, understand that they're sprouting from those little habitual seeds. Step 3, actively cultivate the antidotes, like loving kindness and compassion. And if you want to go deeper, you can train the mind's stability and clarity. And the whole point of all of this is to transform your perception and find a genuine sense of freedom. And that brings us to the final question, which is really all for you. This isn't just some ancient philosophy to think about, it's a practice to live. So, as you go about the rest of your day, what is one tiny, conscious act you can choose? Maybe a kind word when you feel like being sharp, a moment of patience instead of frustration, a single thought of goodwill for somebody. The whole path starts with just one step, through one of those 3 gates. What's yours going to be?